Hello, hello. Welcome to our first build. Today we're going to be looking at uh, the ultimate healer. Now, by no means is this the only effective healing build, or even maybe the most effective healing build, but it is a very effective healing build with a lot of flavor that I've come up with. So we're going to start with one level of Life Cleric. Now, Life Cleric is just absolutely amazing for anything healing related. And most people want to take a lot more than one level of Life Cleric. And I see where that comes from. Max healing is amazing, but I feel like you can get more out of it by not taking that and instead going the route of you just need a one level dip in Life Cleric in order to get the most important thing to me, which is the added healing to every spell you cast. So we're going to be taking that one level just to get that added healing. We also gain from that proficiency with heavy armor. Now, Life Cleric doesn't exactly give us the proficiencies that we would prefer. So there's definitely other options here. You could start off with something that gives you Constitution saves. I believe sorcerers give you Constitution saves, but that might work out pretty well. However, if you can find another way to get Constitution saves, maybe ask your GM if you can trade your proficiencies from your background, all of those fun things for Constitution saving throws instead. That might be good, because this is really going to help us never die. So there's a lot potentially more effective healing builds that are a lot less tanky, a lot less able to keep themselves alive. Now, I do realize this build has its drawbacks and has its specialties. I think from my experience playing role-playing games, it's best when some of the party has their areas of expertise and talent, because it lets everybody shine and share the spotlight naturally, and you don't have to constantly think and consider that. Your characters are literally based around sharing the spotlight with your teammates, and that really improves quality of life for everybody at the table. So with that in mind, that's kind of what we're going for here, is the specialty of healing, and we'll be doing a lot of it. So if you're not one of the people who wants to spend most of their turns healing, or you want a really good, really quick level 1 start, then this is probably not the build for you, because the level 1 start is really slow. However, it accomplishes what we're looking for. It gives you a ton of healing. Also, to clarify, you definitely do get Constitution and Charisma saves from starting with the Sorcerer, and that can also work for your story. So what I think for story-wise is pretty good for this is, since we're doing a bit of Life Cleric, some Shadow Sorcerer, just generic Bard, and then Undying Light Warlock. We have some extremes there. Shadow Sorcerer and Undying Light Warlock aren't usually going to be in the same spectrum of character. You have a Shadow Sorcerer that's generally evil, and on that note, actually picks from the quirks. You're icy cold to the touch. Whenever you're asleep, you don't appear to breathe. You don't seem to bleed even when you're badly injured, or your heart beats once per minute. All of these kind of thematic quirks to you are very reminiscent of telltale signs of bad guys in D&D. However, you don't need to go that way. In fact, sorcerer background is something that's forced on your character story-wise. You're born with that. That's not something that you really get a choice about, and you either choose to embrace it or to shun it. And this character is obviously going to be shunning that. So, Life Cleric, I feel like, is a good start because it kind of shows that you're hiding from that sorcerer part of you, right? That shadow sorcerer, and I kind of envision this as maybe shadow sorcerers have gained a reputation for ill deeds and using their ability to move between shadows to be good thieves or assassins or really anything else like that. So I don't think that the flavor behind Shadow Sorcerer says anything to your world, but these are potentially evil people. And since most people in most worlds like to stereotype more often than not and look at the book's cover, so to speak, I feel like your character might feel ostracized simply for being part Shadow Sorcerer. To kind of reflect that, I didn't take any quirks from the particular list of Shadow Sorcerer quirks. I kind of thought of my own, which is your shadow moves and writhes about on its own. Okay, so the concept here is that it's very apparent that that you and your shadow are at odds, and you don't control it so much. You're kind of looking at the wild magic kind of feel of sorcerer in this way. So now let's get on to what are we getting from Life Cleric. So Life Cleric is giving us the ability to heal better. Every spell we cast gets 2 plus its spell level added to the healing if it has any healing. So where that's important is our beginning feat. So that starting feat right here, from human variant, is Magic Initiate, right? We're going to pull a first level spell from another class. In this case, we're going to take Druid's Goodberry spell, because Goodberry, even I think it was Mike Merles who said that that applying the Disciple of Life trait from Life Domain Cleric to Goodberry is a-okay. But regardless, one of the devs said that that's acceptable, and what we're looking at is 4 health per berry. And you're just going to be using your spell slots mainly to make berries before you go to sleep every night. So what that's going to look like is you have 2 beginning level spell slots as a cleric, and you have another spell slot, quote unquote, only for first level Goodberry. So you're going to get 3 casts of it. You make 10 berries each, so that's 30 berries, 4 HP for each berry. So already at level 1, we have 120 health pool to effectively heal our party. However, it's not combat healing. It takes a whole action from that person to eat a berry, and if you're passing something to another player, I think that's at least a bonus action for you. I don't know what the rule book says about how long it takes, what kind of action you take to pass a berry to another person, but I'm suspecting it's at least a bonus action, and that's the homebrew we're using in the campaign I'm playing this character. So for Life Domain Cleric, we're really getting a lot of utility for what we're going to add later. We can pick up healing spells now, But just if you're going to do that, make sure that your GM lets you trade them out later, even if you're not grabbing any more levels of Cleric, because we're actually going to get our healing spells from Bard, because Charisma is our main stat, and the Bard uses Charisma healing, whereas the Cleric uses Wisdom healing, and we just don't want that Wisdom healing. So we're going to take mainly utility spells from Cleric, things like Bless and stuff like that. So for Shadow Sorcerer, the reason we're taking Shadow Sorcerer is because, and you can find this, I'll put a link in the description to the Unearthed Arcana article, but the Shadow Sorcerer has a Strength of the Grave, right? It lets you, whenever damage reduces you to 0 hit points, and that damage was not a critical hit or radiant damage, then you can make a Constitution saving throw 5 plus the damage taken, and when you succeed, you instead drop to 1 hit point. So anytime you kind of get hit by a low damage hit to down you, to knock you unconscious, you're going to roll a Constitution save. And if you succeed, well, guess what? Actually, that didn't reduce me to 0 hit points. It only reduced me to 1. Now, this has no limitations to how many times it can be used. So you can just stack it as many times as you want. Every single time you get reduced to 0, you can roll, and hopefully you get back up again. Now, on top of that, we're getting 60 feet of dark vision from Shadow Sorcerer. So we also get the ability to cast darkness with a single sorcery point, but we don't get sorcery points till level 2, so we can't really use any part of that side of the feature. But we're not really looking for that, so we're not losing a whole lot with that. Okay, so next we have Bard, 1 level. Again, as I said, we're taking Bard mainly for all the healing potential with our Charisma modifier we're getting from Bard. So, just make sure when you go Bard, you take Cure Wounds and Healing Word. That's mainly what you need out of that. So, on top of that, let's see. On top of that, you do get your Bardic Inspiration, so that's really good. Now, be aware that multi-classing each of these classes, actually, our slots continue to scale, which is important because we're going to be using those slots to cast Warlock spells, not to cast the healing spells as much. We can, and ultimately our goal is to be the most accomplished healer we can, but we also are getting damage from this build. The 13 strength that we're getting right here is so we can wear that heavy armor we got from Life Cleric, so we got a little bit of tankiness there. We got an 18 armor class starting with that chainmail, right? We also, on top of having 18 armor class, we're gonna get up to like 20 or somewhere up there AC once we get our real heavy armor going on. So there's some great potential for that heavy armor there. Now, next we're taking 17 levels of Undying Light Warlock. Now, in one of the books, I believe there's an Undying Warlock. This is Undying Light. It's a little bit different, and most people will consider it the quote-unquote healing warlock, but it doesn't get access to any cleric or bard spells innately, so it's not really a healing warlock. But a lot of our flavor is going to come from this patron. So at first level, we get resistance to radiant damage, so we're covering our weakness. We can't really get resistance to critical hits. That's just not a thing. But we can get resistance to the radiant damage. That was the other caveat of our self-res. And we're going to get that from the Undying Light Warlock. We're also going to know the Sacred Flame and Light cantrips. And we're going to get our Charisma modifier to any radiant or fire damage we deal. That's going to be really good, just spamming that Sacred Flame cantrip. It's almost going to replace our Eldritch Blast from Warlock, which is really good and thematic, I think, because how many times out of Warlocks do you really hear Eldritch Blast? What are you doing this turn? Eldritch Blast. What are you doing this turn? Eldritch Blast, right? And at least if we're going to be casting a lot of cantrips, which we can do a lot more than just cantrips, but if we're going to be casting a lot of cantrips, then we can do something other than Eldritch Blast, which is Sacred Flame. Now, at level 6, we get our second self-res, and this one is a 100% for sure self-res. So how it works is when you make a death saving throw, so it doesn't conflict with our Shadow Sorcerer one. It's after we're already on the ground for a single turn when we make that saving throw, right? Then instead of making that, we're going to spring to our feet with a burst of radiant energy, right? And you're going to regain half your hit points, half your maximum. Every hostile creature within 30 feet of you is going to take 10 plus your Charisma modifier radiant damage, and they're going to be blinded until the end of your turn. So now the end of your turn is not very helpful because remember we take a death saving throw at the start of our turn. So all it's for here is for us to get out, for us to just run and rely on that blind disadvantage to not take opportunity attacks. Now I'm sure there's probably more ways to use that blind, but it's has not occurred to me yet. But it still is a nice effect to be able to not just be completely surrounded by enemies except for one spot and be like, well, I can't leave because I'll take 8 attacks of opportunity to try to bolt. Well, if they're all at disadvantage, and you have a high AC like this character does, you're not so concerned with that. So that is a long rest ability. We can't do that one every single time all the time. I mean, honestly, if it would be really powerful if it was anything more than every long rest, and it's still really powerful. It's the most powerful self-res that I've seen, even more powerful than most homebrews I've seen. So but regardless, those both come from the same document, Shadow Sorcerer and Undying Light Warlock, which is a Unearthed Arcana article called the Light, Dark, and Underdark. There is a third thing in there that is actually pretty good. That's a Ranger archetype, and there's a couple new fighting styles that are really good. So this is probably one of the most unbalanced Unearthed Arcanas I think I've seen. So, your GM may have some reservations about letting you play this, but that's alright. Just talk with them, work with them, and see if you can't, balance that a little more. Now, at 10th level as Warlock, we're going to get the ability to give ourselves and all of our allies temporary hit points at the end of every short and long rest. Okay? So, what we're looking at here is your level plus your Charisma modifier, so eventually 25 hit points, temporary hit points as a shield for you, right? And everybody else is going to gain in your party, up to 5 others in your party are going to gain your warlock level plus your charisma modifier divided by 2. Now it doesn't say whether that's rounded up or down. Most times that it happens, it's rounded down, but I I assume, and I know other people sometimes assume that when it doesn't tell you how to round it, you just round it normally. So either way, 12 or 13 hit points from this as a shield for all of your allies once you're max level. That's really good, even at early levels. Being able to get this and just put a 6 health barrier in front of your teammates is really powerful. Think about that. 6 times 5, 30, and that's also your 12 health barrier. That's amazing. So every time you take a short or long rest, you're going to get that. So we're following again the warlock theme with the short rests being powerful for us too. Lastly, at 14th level, it takes a while, but we get our key feature for the Undying Light, which is the ability to heal ourselves and other creatures. As a bonus action, you can touch creatures and heal them. And you can choose. You have a dice pool of 15 d6s, right? So let's look at that. 15 d6s, right? And you can choose to expend between 1 and 5 d6s from that pool to heal them. Unfortunately, since this is not a spell, it does not gain the life cleric part. So we're not gonna gain extra healing on this, but that's okay, right? Now again, this is a long rest, so we're not gonna gain it every short rest. Really, if we did, that would be way too powerful again. So but this is gonna be a great addition to our character. Now that's from just the patron we chose. Now let's talk about our other options. Now this build's not tied to a particular pact. You could definitely be Pact of the Chain, Blade, or Tome, and this build would work quite well. If you need more spell casting, don't be afraid to get Pact of the Tome and get those rituals going. If you're one of the few spellcasters in your party, that might be really good. Now, Pact of the Chain gives you a lot of options for just, style. It gives you huge style points. Being able to talk through that familiar, being able to use the help action with that familiar is going to help you hit when you really don't have a whole lot going for you on melee attacks, or really spell attacks until you hit Warlock at all. So that's going to be really nice. Pact of the Blade, while we're not really going to be a melee based character, what Pact of the Blade does give you as far as options is the ability to use the new invocations that came out in another Unearthed Arcana that lets you get magic, +1, +2, +3 magic weapons out of your Pact of the Blade. Now, again, we're not using those weapons most likely because we're just casting spells. We're a classic spellcaster. However, what we can do is give that just summon up a maul and hand that maul to our two-handed wielder, who now has a +3 maul in his hand, and just start smashing things. Or you could bind your weapon to a magic bow and hand that bow to your archer every time, and know that it's safe and it's not going anywhere. Nobody can steal it because you can always summon it back. There's a lot of options for that. It may not be the one that I would probably go. I'd probably go Book of Ancient Secrets with Pact of the Tome, but each one of them has their own possible options for how to make this shine in whatever way you feel like playing this character. Now, at 17th level, we're going to be getting a lot of different things. That was a very strategic choice in where to stop our pact, our warlock. We only had 3 levels to play with because we want our mystic arcanums. At 17th level, we get access to our 9th level slot. Well, not the slot, but the 9th level spell and ability to cast it once as a warlock. What you take with that's up to you, but that's really important to have access to that. Also, at 16th level, we're having access to 1 more ASI, ability score improvement, so we don't want to lose that either. Lastly, at 17th level, we go from 3 spell slots with Warlock to 4, which again is a really important breakpoint. Now, what you're losing by not doing 18th level is a single invocation, which is, that's fine with me. Eldritch Master, which is the level 20, lets you, once per long rest, spend a minute trying to get your spell slots back, for, asking your patron to give you more power and give you your spell slots back, which is good. It doubles the spell slots from that, but you're gaining more spell slots and more utility from the 3 levels you're getting in other things. Now, for our invocation options, we got a lot of really good options out there. If you took Pact of the Tome, you could be taking Book of Ancient Secrets. You could take, instead of going the heavy armor route, I wouldn't suggest it because it let us dump our dexterity, but instead of going the heavy armor route, you could instead go mage armor. You could also pick up Eyes of the Runekeeper and Eldritch Sight. There's some new options in Unearthed Arcana that give us a lot of invocations that are really nice. Now, always ask your GM about these kind of things. Most of the new options in Warlock and Wizard give you access specifically for a particular patron. None of those patrons are Undying Light because being a playtest, it just didn't. I don't think it got considered. However, there's some really good ones that are really close to what you're dealing with. The Archfey patron has, a healing-based invocation that lets you, if you're healed, right, whenever you gain hit points, so not on other people, just on you, it's max value always, which is really nice. Also, they have no need for sleep, which could be pretty awesome and thematic. But mainly, I think what really tells us that that the Archfey patron is kind of close to Undying Light is that their longbow that they can now summon by getting this Pact of the Blade feature that was added. Yes, they can now summon a longbow that makes its own arrows every time you fire. Does radiant damage. Now, its base attack doesn't do radiant damage, but you can expend spell slots to deal extra radiant damage for those spell slots. Now, that sounds a whole lot to me like like a Undying Light Warlock, and I would definitely, if I was the GM for that game, rule that at the very least that particular invocation could be taken by Undying Light. If we have those options, we're probably going to take like Aspect of the Moon, which is, you don't have to sleep, you just have to do, light resting activities like reading and things like that for 8 hours. You don't you regain max health when you're healed, or when you roll hit dice, or anything that makes you regain hit points, you gain max. There's also the ability to reduce a creature's speed by 10 when you use Eldritch Blast, which would combine really well with the 10 feet knockback. That's 20 feet lost from that alone, which is really nice. And you can also gain the ability to breathe underwater with a swim speed equal to your walking speed, and the ability to cast water breathing using a Warlock spell slot. Now, I don't really know as though you would cast water breathing with a Warlock spell slot a whole lot. It might be useful sometimes, but again, if it was cast it once per long rest, that would be one thing. But it's cast it once per long rest by expending your spell slot, which is, to me, not very useful. Some other really good options from, again, the player's handbook is the Repelling Eldritch Blast, if you want to go that route. However, that's going to eat a lot of our feats doing Eldritch Blast things to get it up to the level that Sacred Flame would be. Instead of the Pact of the Tome thing, you could take the Pact of the Chain Communication. You could also use Gaze of Two Minds. That might be really nice. One of the ones we definitely want is Fiendish Vigor. Now, how you tie this in thematically to your character, I don't know. So if you're not really interested in trying to figure out how to tie that in, you might skip this. But False Life on yourself at will as a first level spell without any slot or components used is amazing for our healing, especially considering it does proc our Life Cleric ability. We may want, on top of that, we may want the Devil's Sight, where you can see normally in magical and non-magical darkness to 120 feet. That's going to be really good for a lot of things. However, it doesn't stack with our 60 feet of dark vision already, so, maybe not. I probably would take it, but a lot of people may not with their 7 options. One thing I definitely would take is one with shadows. This is so thematic with the Shadow Sorcerer, I just can't even begin to talk about that. Is when you're in an area of dim light or darkness, you can use your action to become invisible until you move or take an action or reaction. And this just screams style of your shadow. The writhing shadow moves to cover you and blend you in with the rest of the dim light and darkness. This is great for setting traps and anything like that. So that's definitely something that I would always take. There's a few other options out there, but I don't think we'll get into them all that much because I don't feel like they... I feel like they're individual choices, not as a whole. Lastly, we're going to talk about the ability score improvements and what we're going to take with those. Now, we're only going to max Charisma to 20. We're not going to max Constitution. You can, however, the feats we're looking at are... we're a little feat heavy, and we only have, 4 ASIs plus the 5th from being human. So we're not going to have a whole lot of options here. So let's look at what those options are. First, we have the option of being being a warcaster um, and having better concentration or advantage on concentration saving throws. Um, you don't need a free hand for somatic components, and you can use a spell as your attack of opportunity during your reaction. That one's really nice with what we're doing. However, I did not take it on mine. Again, our goal is to make one of the greatest healers ever. So that, while more balance between healing and damage, does not scream healer to me. But the healer feat does. And it's going to be really important because it lets us stabilize people with a healing kit. And that healing kit is just not returning people to life with a healing kit is really what we're looking at here during combat. I feel like you're going to be doing this a lot. You're the tanky healer that just says, screw the battle, I'm keeping my allies alive. And yeah, I can kind of attack enemies, but my main concern is not fighting. It's making sure the fight doesn't take out my team. And there's a lot of people who've statted out how much healing you can get from healer, and yeah, it takes a little bit of gold, but it doesn't take spell slots, which as a warlock we're shorter on than most classes, but we still have a lot of. So we're gonna do that, a lot. So that's another feat to keep in mind. The last one, well, not the last one, but another one I really like is Inspiring Leader. After 10 minutes of inspiring your companions, 6 creatures, including, that number includes yourself, within 30 feet of you, who can see and hear you and understand you, gain temporary hit points equal your level charisma modifier. Okay? And they can't do it again until they've finished a short or long rest. Now, that's awesome. That's really, really amazing, because it's short rest too. So a lot of parties I've been in take about 3 short rests per long rest and just keep plugging away at whatever they're working on. Because a short rest is a lot easier to take than a long rest. And especially for those out there who have a homebrew of like 5 or 15 minutes instead of an hour-long short rest, that is perfect. Anything you can get on a short rest is amazing, which is partly why we've taken Warlock. But it doesn't stack with our other temporary hit points from Undying Light Warlock, which because temporary hit points never stack with each other. However, what it does do is it's a better version of that you can use later. 10 minutes is really not that long of a time. You can definitely spend 10 minutes inspiring your allies before certain fights, key boss fights. Let's say you took a short rest a while back, and the temporary hit points already dropped off, 3/4 of your party, and now you're about to walk into the boss room. Well, now you're gonna pump up your whole team with temporary hit points, but with inspiring words, and then charge into that battle with an extra 25 hit points. That's a lot. Each and every one of you an extra 25 hit points. So beyond that, there's a few feats you might be interested in, and there's role-playing feats. There's durable, which is really nice for keeping your health up and your constitution, raising that. You got a lot of other options there. And if you didn't go human variant, you know, your magic initiate would come in pretty soon. As far as backgrounds, there's not a specific background that's particular to this. Just however you did your story, I would do your background based on that. My personal choice was the Acolyte background. I think it worked and really solidified the Cleric of All Matter start, where you're running from your shadow and everything that has to do with that to D&D's deity of endurance, and trying to get away from basically your past life and being bullied and things like that, but on top of that, knowing that there's something not normal about your background. So whatever you choose is not particularly important. I wouldn't choose something with stealth since we're wearing heavy armor. There's just not a very good way to stealth well on this unless you're taking the mage armor. And then your whole stat array is changing. So play with it as you'd like. In the description below, I'm going to have some links to some Unearthed Arcana articles that I've mentioned here. And if you guys enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and comment. Tell me how you'd change this build. What other options do you see here? Is there a different multi-class with those 3 levels that might work better? All around, do you have another better idea for an ultimate healer? I'd love to hear about it. And if you guys would like a video about a particular type of build, if you'd like it, you know, a style based build or a min-max kind of build, just tell me in the description and we'll see what we can do. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.